And now the reason why I decided to buy this lens. Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and I'm a photographer. And I bought a new lens today, or actually I received my new lens today. This is the Sigma 70mm f2.8 macro. And to celebrate my new macro lens, I thought I'd share a few reasons why everyone should own a macro lens. I have a very specific purpose for this lens. I don't buy lenses or anything unless I have a really good reason or purpose for that particular product. I don't shop for fun. It doesn't work for me. And I'll get back to that specific reason in just a moment. But now let me share some reasons why I think everyone should own a macro lens. One excellent reason to own a macro lens is the optical quality. Macro lenses offer the best sharpness and the best image quality compared to any similar normal lens. And I don't think there are many exceptions to that rule. Pretty much every macro lens offers superior sharpness, superior contrast, and superior image quality. You can't go wrong with a macro lens regarding the image quality and sharpness. And yes, I know sharpness is not everything. There are many other aspects to photography, but who wouldn't like a sharp lens? You can always make the picture softer in post, but you can't make it sharper. And I think we all want to own at least one really sharp lens. And another good reason is the versatility. Macro lenses are super versatile. They are not only for macro photography, and I think that's one of the misconceptions. Often people think that a macro lens is only for macro photography, but it's not. They can be used for anything and everything, from landscape photography to portraits to products to food photography, and of course for macro photography. There are other lenses that say macro on the side of the lens, especially many zoom lenses, but they are not true macro lenses because a true macro lens goes all the way to 1:1 reproduction ratio. And if the lens doesn't do that, it's not a proper macro lens. Those zoom lenses that say macro on the side of the lens, they have usually pretty good close-up capabilities, but they are not true macro lenses. Usually the shortest macro lenses are around 50mm in focal length or equivalent depending on the sensor size of your camera, and the longest macro lenses are usually around 200mm or equivalent depending on the sensor size of the camera. And the maximum aperture is usually a little bit slower, or the maximum f number is a little bit higher than on a similar normal lens. This, for example, this is a 70mm f2.8, but if this was like a normal 70mm lens, the maximum aperture would probably be around 2 or f1.8. But for most photography, that about one stop penalty is not that big of a deal, because modern cameras are so good even at higher ISO values, and you can easily get away with that one-stop handicap in most situations. Of course, this or any macro is not a true low-light lens, but the flip side is the extreme versatility. This can be used for extreme close-ups and also for vast landscapes or anything in between. And of course, macro photography is a lot of fun, and it's so easy to find suitable subjects or scenes for a macro lens. You can find them everywhere, even at home. You don't have to go anywhere. Try to look for patterns, for example, in different materials like fabric, food and plastic and whatever. You can find those patterns everywhere, and little tiny details, and the whole macro world is fascinating. and you can see things that you can't see with your bare eyes. It's incredible what you can find even in some of the most mundane things when you dig a little bit deeper or closer with your macro lens. And of course, if you go out, you can photograph plants and insects and other such things, which is another fascinating world. But do not misunderstand me. I'm not saying that creating the best macro photos is easy. It's not necessarily any easier than any other photography if you want to create something really great. But finding those macro subjects is relatively easy, and if you look closely, closely indeed, you can find them everywhere. And it is a really fascinating new world, especially if you have never owned a macro lens before. It's a lot of fun. And now the reason why I decided to buy this lens. There is a specific reason. I have owned several macro lenses over the years, but I did not have any macro lens for any of my current cameras before I bought this lens. And I was actually looking for the 105mm f2.8 Sigma macro lens because that one I have reviewed and I really liked the lens. I think it was really good lens. But then I found this used 70mm for a very good price. And this is in a very good shape. You can tell it's not a new lens, but it looks almost like a new lens. And then I thought, okay, 70mm is also a good focal length for the purpose I'm going to use this lens for. And that purpose is digitizing my negatives and slides. It's an enormous task, but it's something I need to do because now I have all my negatives and slides and all my film stuff in a few cardboard boxes, and I never get a chance to properly take a look at them. And I'm never going to set up a traditional wet darkroom, at least in this life. So when those films and negatives, when they are in those cardboard boxes, they are absolutely no use to me. But there are many pictures that I'd like to take a look and enjoy because there are so many memories and so many other things in those pictures, and it's a shame that they are now in those big cardboard boxes. And based on my previous experience, I think a digital camera is the best way to digitize negatives or slides or whatever film stuff you have, because you get the raw file, which is better than JPEG or TIFF that a scanner delivers. I'm not sure if there are scanners that can make a raw file, but anyway, I think a digital camera can make super nice files from those negatives and slides, and that's why I want to do it that way, and that's what I need a macro lens for. With a 70mm lens, I have to go quite close to get that 1:1 or almost 1:1 ratio, but when I'm digitizing negatives or slides, it doesn't matter because the light is coming from behind. The problem with a very close shooting distance can be that the lens starts to shade the subject, but in this case it's not going to be any problem. But of course, I'm also going to shoot something else on my used new macro lens, and I'll probably make a separate video also about this lens. It's not going to be a proper review because this is not anymore any kind of a hot new lens, and there are reviews all over YouTube and all over everywhere. So if you want a full review, you can easily find that. But of course I'm excited to have a new lens. Who would not? Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Some thoughts on macro lenses and some thoughts on my new used new macro lens. And of course, please do leave your macro experiences also in the comments down below. I'd like to read those as usual. Thank you so much for watching, and oh yes, if you found this video very entertaining or useful, please do consider buying me a cup of coffee. There's a link down below for that if you don't live in Finland. Thanks guys, and I'll see you in the next one.